It's Employee Engagement Day, darling, and I'm really excited to be reviewing this brand new, hot off the presses data that I just got literally in my inbox last night from Achievers in their 2020 Engagement and Retention Report. I'm always fascinated by the data that Achievers puts out. I think it's really, really insightful, and I can't wait to see their findings, particularly when we look at the lead on the front page here, why up to 64% of employees may be leaving their jobs in 2020. All right, but a few quick announcements before I get started. Number one, listen, I've really been enjoying doing these videos. This is a very new format for me. I'm literally just playing around and figuring it out. I've always done scripted webinar content in the past, and I kind of like this more off-the-cuff sort of response thing that I'm doing on here. But I want to know you like it too. So if you have thoughts about the videos, please leave a comment. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. Tell me what topics you want me to cover. I'm totally open to input here. Also, if you like what I'm doing, let me know by subscribing to the channel, sharing the content with your friends, giving it a thumbs up on YouTube. All of this will let me know I'm headed in the right direction in a way that really helps you out, or maybe that you just enjoy. The other announcement that I want to make is I have 2 free webinars that I have just barely scheduled for the month of February. I can't believe that January is almost over. It's like blowing my mind, but I do have 2 free events that you're going to be able to come to get more in-depth information on a couple of topics. Now, to register or just to find out more information about those, what you want to do is head over to zenworkplace.com. You'll know you're in the right place if you see a giant picture of me on the homepage with far better hair than I have today. And then just scroll down a little bit, you're going to find our 2 free webinars. Now, these are webinars specifically dedicated to people in leadership positions, in management positions. Maybe you're in human resources, maybe you're in training and development. These are going to be right up your alley. The first one's going to be on February 13th. I'm going to be discussing the core components of my Manager Mastery Training Program. Now, this is a program that I have implemented in organizations all over the world, all different types of industries, all different types of groups. And on the teams that listen to what I tell them to do, they've actually seen increases in their productivity of up to 30%. So you really can increase your team's productivity just by changing the way you're managing them. And I will be reviewing the 4 core components that allows us to get that result. Number 2, I have another free webinar on February 26th that is all about having effective team building workshops. Listen, team building workshops can be a magic bullet to improving team communication, cohesion, productivity, results. Whatever pain points are on your team, we can help you out with a team building workshop. But you can't just throw a workshop together kind of willy-nilly. What you need to do is understand the unique dynamics of what's going on in the team and pinpoint how they need help prior to the workshop. So what I'm going to do is walk through the different tools and assessments that I use to get there, and then share with you how I create a customized workshop experience that not only allows the team to make measurable progress in the areas that are really hurting them the most, but also that they're really going to enjoy, that they're going to have fun with, that they're going to allow them to create those bonds, develop that psychological safety that we know is really, really important to their overall results. So head over to zenworkplace.com if you're interested in these free webinars. If you can't make it on the date that I have them scheduled, just sign up anyway. And what will happen is you'll get a free recording right after I finish. So super, super easy. But let's dig into our data, shall we? Now, I have the PDF of this report that we're going to be reviewing. If you would like your own copy of this report, what you want to do is head over to achievers.com, hit this resource section in the upper menu, and it's really right at the top. So you can get your own PDF if you maybe want to download it, follow along, or if you just want it to reference later. So let's take a look at what they found. Up to 2/3 of employees say they may leave their jobs in 2020. Employers must take immediate action to retain and engage their workforce. They must work to build a culture where workers feel appreciated and their talent is valued and their feedback is valued, or risk a mass exodus of talent. Listen, the economy is good, folks. This is a job seekers market. Unemployment is at an all-time low. And some people seem to think that the jobs that are being created in this economy are just like low-paying jobs that no one wants. It's not true. This is a job seekers market. People across many industries and many different levels of experience are able to find a new job if they want one. So I think this is going to be really, really important data for us to look at and consider as part of that experience. I'm just going to make it a little bigger. So we're going to block out some stuff in the background there. There we go. Okay. That's good enough. All right, 64% of employees have one foot out the door. In 2019, disengaged employees voiced they had no real plans to leave their roles. So last year, what Achievers found is like people are kind of staying put. Maybe people were a little bit nervous. They were complacent to remain in jobs with companies they are not passionate about. That was actually a really fascinating part of last year's report. It wasn't that they were staying in jobs because they were like happy and excited and engaged. They were just like, meh, we don't really care. We're kind of disengaged, but we're not going to look for a new job. That's really important. This year, however, they could be headed to the door. Up to 2/3 of North American employees might leave their jobs, according to a new study from Achievers. Compared to 2019, the number of people looking for a new job remained flat at 35%. However, the percentage who definitely plan to stay with their employers dropped a full 14 points to just 33%. Those who are undecided rose to 32%. The situation is even worse with younger workers. Only 23% of 18 to 29-year-olds will stay put. 50% indicated they will pursue a new job. Another 27% are undecided. For 30 to 44-year-olds, 38% to plan to look, while 34% are still undecided. All signs point towards a workforce that is indifferent and detached. What is at the root of this trend? What are employers missing? Employees are still disengaged. Employers may feel like they offer strong perks, offer flexibility, more growth opportunities than ever. These efforts, though, are not translating into retention of employees. A likely reason, just 19% of employees consider themselves very engaged. Listen, I think one of the causes of this is that, and I see this happen all the time with clients I work with, or, I hear stories in the industry when I won't name people who do, to protect the guilty. But listen, a lot of times what organizations are doing that they consider perks, they aren't actually implementing things that their employees care about. And a lot of times they aren't, even if they are implementing programs for them, they aren't necessarily doing it in a way that is really engaging the employees with the program. So they might be doing something, but they're not doing the right thing. And then they kind of go back and they're like, well, we did something. We don't know why people were engaged. Well, you did something, but you didn't take your learnings from it. You didn't get feedback from your employees. You didn't get their real authentic thoughts about what it was. You got to try again. You got to make sure you're looking for programs that are going to engage people, not only on that highly practical level, but also on that emotional level. Emotions are what lead to employee engagement, folks. So just because you're doing something doesn't mean you're doing the right thing. This leaves well over 3/4 of workers with subpar engagement. Of that group, 14% identify themselves as either somewhat or completely disengaged. This is incredibly dangerous to an organization's health. Gallup says that these workers, they may be generally satisfied, but are not cognitively or emotionally connected to their work and workplace. See, I didn't even read this yet. I just, told you that right up front. They will show up to work and do the minimum required, but they will quickly leave their company for a slightly better offer. Employers and business leaders have an opportunity, and the task is critical. Listen, I know that a lot of you are just not comfortable with emotions in the workplace. About 50% of you, in fact, are not comfortable with emotions in the workplace. But what you need to understand is that is how our brains are hardwired to work. You are not going to achieve your best results. You're not going to win as much as you want. You're not going to be able to get people to do what you want them to do if they are not emotionally engaged in their work. In the work I do, I go into organizations and I measure the resiliency of their working groups. And one of the core attributes of team resiliency is attitude. How committed are people to being a part of the team? Are they showing up? Are they giving 100% effort? Or are they showing up and they're kind of like, meh, I'm going to do the very basic stuff that I need to do to kind of get by and not get fired? What we're talking about here is attitude. And what this report and their report last year tells us is employees are showing up with that meh attitude. So it is incumbent upon organizational leaders to really do everything that they can do to make sure they are supporting the emotional engagement of their employees with the task. Let's see what their data says. 19% of people said they were very engaged and planning to stay at their company a long time. 35% somewhat engaged. 32% average engagement, 6% somewhat engaged but looking for new opportunities, 8% completely disengaged or actively looking for another job. Leadership is falling flat on culture building. A likely element of this disengagement is the worsening perception of leadership in improving company culture and employee experience. The way employees view management involvement in this area has declined since 2019, with an 8% drop in those who report leadership is committed to culture. Nearly half, 45%, say leadership is minimally or not engaged at all, committed to improving company culture. Only 23% of employees call them more than or very committed. Listen, this is what I was talking about. Just because you're doing stuff doesn't mean you're doing the right stuff. And your employees know. Your employees know when you're really interested in stuff that's going to help them and stuff that you're just doing to say that you did it. You have to make sure you're involving them in the process, getting their feedback in the process, and then you're not just running the boring old programs or throwing the most boring old expected perks at them and expecting that to produce the end result you want. Leadership's absenteeism in company culture is a massive threat to businesses. Indeed, Glassdoor economic research finds culture and values of an organization, 22%, and the quality of senior leadership, 21%, are the top two factors of employee satisfaction. So I'm just going to say that again. The top two factors of employee satisfaction are culture and values of the organization and the quality of senior leadership. Unfortunately, only 31% of HR leaders say their organization have the culture they need to drive future business, and just 21% say their employees deeply trust their company leaders. If your employees do not trust you, game over, folks. Employee engagement, game over if you have not worked to build trust. Trust is foundational. Everything else, from being able to have productive conflict, to being able to hold employees accountable, to being able to achieve your best results, stem from the foundation of trust that you have or have not built. If you don't do that, then really all the rest of this is lost. That's why I'm doing that webinar about team workshops, team building workshops. They're all about building that trust. Most of the time, sometimes we have to do other stuff too. I'll talk more about that in the webinar. But really, trust is a key part of those workshops. Why it's so important. Leadership must play a larger role in culture building. They must communicate with workers transparently and frequently. They must demonstrate commitment to culture by reinforcing company values and mission and recognizing those who activate it across the organization. Culture and values of the organization. Okay, we already saw that. In supporting company culture, leaders will not only better position their organizations to hold onto that 1/3 of employees uncertain about staying in their environment by improving engagement, they will also build an aligned high-performance workforce. Wow, sorry for the that's going on over here. I will try to improve. Compared to business units in the bottom quartile of culture and engagement, data shows that the top quartile see substantially better customer engagement, higher productivity, better retention, and 21% higher profitability. Lack of recognition is compounding disengagement. I talk about recognition all the time when I'm training managers, so we'll see what Achievers has to say. When it comes to turnover, our survey results found the top reasons employees are looking or would consider leaving their company were compensation, career advancement, and lack of recognition. Now, compensation, getting a better job is actually the easiest way to get a raise. Not a better job, I misspoke. Getting a new job in a new organization is the absolute easiest way to get a really substantial raise. Is the easiest way by far. It's easier than arguing with your organization, making a pitch to your organization. Even if you're due for a raise in your current organization, it's usually going to be a very, very small one compared to the pay bump that you can get by looking elsewhere. So that makes sense. Career advancement makes sense. Sometimes those things are just uncontrollable. But listen, lack of recognition is something that is completely within your control. We need to be training our managers and leaders to do this. That's why it's a part of my manager training program. The first two are no surprise. When asked this question, compensation will usually win out. I don't necessarily agree with that one. Compensation will win out when other things are lacking. So it's usually not just, I'm going to make more money. If a person is really engaged, and I actually just saw this, I did this interview with a fellow on my No BS podcast who was straight up offered more money by another organization, but he chose to stay in his current job because he loved working there so much. So if employees are really engaged, really committed to the organization, that can outweigh a better financial offer from another organization every day. They talk about Maslow. I'm not going to go over that here. While compensation may improve bottom line job satisfaction to a degree, it is an expensive and unscalable tactic for organizations. It meets a need, but typically fails to drive long-term engagement or retention. So what the data tells us is that, and this is not in this, but just generally speaking, is that if employees get a raise or a bonus, they're going to be like feeling good. They're going to be like extra committed to the organization for about 2 weeks. 2 weeks is the boost that you get. And then the new car smell wears off. Things are back to normal. It does not have long-term impact to give those out. That's why a lot of organizations, instead of doing the big year-end bonus where they get a big chunk of change, what they're doing is they're taking that pot of money and they're actually divvying it out over the year with smaller, just little recognition bonuses that are much smaller in overall size, add up to the same as the big bonus at the end of the year, but it drives that same level of engagement on an ongoing basis. So they're getting more of those little 2-week bumps throughout the year, and it adds up to the same as the whole. The recognition deficit. Lack of recognition was the third most common reason employees chose leaving their employer. In other words, it was the top reason for 1 of every 5 employees. In a Gallup study, only 1 in 3 workers said they received recognition or praise for doing good work in the past 7 days. That's likely why our study found that 46% of employees only feel moderately valued by their supervisors, 30% of employees feel not very or not at all valued by their supervisors, 53% only feel moderately valued by their colleagues, and 26% feel being undervalued and underappreciated is the highest barrier to engagement. These numbers are devastating. They really are. This is not good, folks. We need to be doing better than this. There is a clear imbalance or perception of one in the value exchange between many employees and their employers. Workers feel as though they are dutifully performing tasks the business requires to deliver value to the customers and shareholders, but they do not feel like they are being appreciated. One of the biggest objections I get to giving out positive recognition is people, managers say, this happens all the time in my manager training, they say, I don't feel like I need to say thank you for them just doing their job. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. It is part of your job as a boss to create and cultivate an environment that is going to engage your employees and allow them to achieve at their highest level. If that requires you saying thank you for tasks that are part of their job description, put on your big boy or girl pants and say thank you. Congratulations. Good job. I couldn't do it without you. Those things don't cost you anything. It's just a little bit of extra effort, and removing that resistance to giving out that positive feedback. When the imbalance occurs, employees either demand higher pay or search for a new job. This is demonstrated by the correlation between just 19% calling themselves very engaged and 64% who are undecided or will leave their jobs in 2020. Alternatively, these employees become demotivated and complacent, as found in the 2019 report. Employers must find a way to address this. The good news is compensation is not only in monetary form. I don't find that very, compensation is compensation. Listen, oftentimes people they use compensation to replace pain in other areas. So if they're not feeling valued by their boss, they're going to say, I don't get paid enough for this. If they're not, feeling valued by their colleagues, I didn't sign up for this. I need to go get a new job, make more money, or I need to get paid more if I'm going to come in and handle this. They use compensation as an excuse, but compensation is so rarely the problem. I mean, think about it, folks. They accepted the offer that you made them. They were probably really excited when they took the job to accept that offer. They probably posted on Facebook and LinkedIn, I'm going to this new job. Compensation was not an issue when they accepted the offer. Compensation only became an issue later when we started involving all these other people and they stopped feeling valued. That's where compensation becomes a problem. Use recognition to activate culture and performance. Feeling valued is essential to feeling committed and engaged at work. I feel like I'm a psychic with this report. And yet, feeling undervalued is the second highest thing most hindering engagement. It is also the third most important reason to stay or leave a company, right behind salary and benefits and career advancement. Again, I do not buy the compensation argument as a primary reason people are leaving. I just don't. 82% of employees strongly or somewhat agree they wish they received more recognition. 82% want more recognition. I should do a whole webinar or maybe video about how to give out positive recognition. I swear to God. 60% want to be recognized more frequently than they are, with 32% preferring monthly, 28% preferring weekly or daily, 59% being recognized only quarterly or not at all. Okay. No. The people who tell you that they don't need recognition, that is a work style thing. It is a work style thing. Remember I said 50% of you, or roughly, don't believe that emotions are involved in the workplace or have no place in the workplace? Well, guess what? That same 50% of you think, I don't need recognition. I don't need a pat on the back. And you actually are really uncomfortable with receiving recognition if you're honest with yourselves. It is not that they don't need recognition. It's that you need to give it to them in a different way. 40% answered just okay, and nearly 1 in 5 said horrible when they asked how their company or manager is at recognizing them. Despite all this proof, only half of workers, 50%, say their companies have a formal way to recognize employees. Recognition cannot be left to chance. Not all managers will organically provide recognition or champion their teams. Why aren't we demanding that they do? Why aren't we making it part of the job of every manager to give out positive recognition? That should be in the GD job description. You will give positive feedback to your employees. That is part of the burden that you take on when you accept the role of being a manager. It is mind-blowing to me that this is not required. This is why people need manager training. Ding, 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 ding. They should at least feel like it's required or, come on. This is proven by the study's findings that 80% say some teams are better at recognizing employees than others in the workplace, probably because they have a work style that is open to giving out positive recognition. Recognition not only ensures workers feel valued, employees openly expressed that it activates company culture and drives their own performance. 92% agree that they're recognized for specific action. They're more likely to take that action again in the future. 90% say that when they receive recognition, it motivates them to work harder. Okay, let's talk about this 92%. Human beings, in some respects, are very similar to training a dog. If you want, when you get a puppy, right, and you want to teach that puppy sit, what happens? You say the word sit, and you hold a treat in front of them. And then when they sit, they get the treat. And you do this over and over and over again until they understand that sitting is good, and they might get a treat if they do it. Now, that's a horrible analogy. I know I'm sometimes really bad with some analogies. Human beings are not dogs, even though dogs are awesome. But, it's the same thing. If you want your employees to take certain actions, engage in certain behaviors, you have to provide them with that little treat, that little positive recognition. If you aren't providing that positive feedback, then why would you expect them to know that this is something they should be doing over and over and over again? People are not psychic. But I want to say something about this 90% say it motivates them to work harder as well. Only about 5% of employees are motivated by critical feedback. And yet critical feedback is what is given out most often in organizations. It's, you screwed this up, do this instead. You screwed this up, do this instead. That only intrinsically motivates about 5% of people. 95% of people are motivated by positive feedback. That reflects the results in this study. 90% of them say when they receive recognition, it motivates them to work harder. This should be every manager's job, to give out positive recognition. In a Robert Half survey, less than half of employees said they were always able to make a connection between their day-to-day duties and how they contribute to the company's bottom line. When organizations recognize everyday behaviors that align with their culture and goals, they help reinforce them, as well as the role each employee plays. Doing so also addresses the issue that only 23% of respondents in the survey strongly agreed the recognition they receive is meaningful. People know when you're BSing them, is what that really should say. They know when you're BSing them. There is an acute need to put people at the center of the organization by ensuring they get continuous recognition. Organizations cannot afford not to, as employers, including top performers, who do not feel adequately recognized have lower engagement and are twice as likely to say they will quit in the next year. However, a recognition-rich environment cannot be achieved in a vacuum. Everyone must be empowered and accountable for recognizing others within the organization. The impact of recognition. 58% said their manager relationship would improve with more recognition. Listen, if you want your employees, this is an objection I hear all the time from managers, or a question like, Carlin, how do I just get my employees to do what I want them to do without me having to tell them? Guess what? 58% of your employees are telling you your manager relationship would improve with more positive recognition. Make sure you're giving them positive recognition, folks. 91% said strongly or somewhat agreed recognizing their colleagues makes them happier at work, and 91% strongly or somewhat agreed that a strong recognition culture makes a company attractive to work for. Amplify the employee voice to boost retention and engagement. In this study, 90% of workers said that they were more likely to stay at a company that takes and acts on feedback. Continuous employee listening is an incredibly important engagement lever. It allows organizations to understand and keep a finger on the pulse of culture every day. It helps uncover the ever-changing barriers to employees' success and engagement. Despite the known benefits, there is enormous room for improvement. When asked how good their manager and company are at soliciting feedback in our survey, the common answer was just okay. Listen, I'm going to tell you, so what happens when most companies are soliciting feedback from their employees? They do what? They do the employee engagement survey, right? And then what happens when you get the results of the employee engagement survey? The leaders kind of go off into a dark room. They shut the door, they draw the shades, they don't want any employees seeing the results of this data. And they analyze it themselves, and then they present what they want to tell employees. I've had this happen with so many clients who I execute employee engagement surveys for. They analyze the data, they say, I want to tell our staff this, I don't want to tell them that. That is exactly the wrong answer, because your employees know that they're only getting part of the story. What is a much better way? Employees hate employee engagement surveys because 75% of them perceive that nothing is going to be done with the feedback that they're giving in these surveys. This is why people have survey fatigue. People think they have survey fatigue because we're sending out too many of these surveys, like once or twice a year is just too much to ask. No, that's not why people have survey fatigue, folks. People have survey fatigue because you make them do this long survey and then you never report back to them the results, and you never show them that you're taking action based on their results. They're like, this is a waste of time. That's why it is. This infrequency is detrimental to an organization's efforts. I totally agree with that. When I'm doing team resiliency assessments, we say every 3 to 4 months you do those assessments. When Gartner projected this as of 2019, 74% of employers would still be relying solely on formal, large-scale surveys to gauge their employee engagement rather than more frequent mechanisms. When it came to acting on feedback, those who gave their employer a good grade declined by 3% since 2019. Okay, was the second lowest grade? Let's see, only 12% of people say that their company asks often, or they're awesome at it. 30% pretty good. I mean, it's just, if you showed them, listen, even if you were only surveying a couple times a year, if you showed them and communicated, here's what you told us, here's what we did about it, and you did that communication on a more regular basis, I guarantee you those numbers would go up. 90% of workers said that they are more likely to stay at a company that takes and acts on feedback. God damn, I really am a psychic in this report. It's like I do this for a living. This, too, is detrimental. In a study of action planning based on employee feedback, work groups in the top quartile increased employee engagement scores by an average of 10%. Work groups in the lowest quartile saw engagement scores decreased by 3% on average. Inaction also impacts retention. Of those who called their company horrible at acting on feedback in our study, 44% plan to look for a new job. That's compared to just 26% who called their company awesome. Okay, so when employees see you acting on the feedback that they give you, that means they're much more likely to retain. Engagement data must be collected at regular intervals. Organizations must ensure employee feedback reaches their managers. This is especially true given Gallup estimates that at least 70% of the variance in team engagement is explained by the quality of the team leader. All right, 4 takeaways for your future engagement strategy and program. 1, a measly 13% of employees are recognized more than monthly, despite 82% of employees stating they want to be recognized more for their contributions. Activate your culture through frequent recognition. Totally agree with that. They're saying invest in technologies because they're like a technology company. I think their technology is pretty cool, if I'm honest. I think there are other resources out there, though, that you can look at. Make sure you implement a technology solution that's right for you. Full disclosure, I'm Chief Science Officer of Rallybright, which is, we have our own technology platform that does this. I think we're pretty cool too. And sometimes these things can work together, so it's not necessarily like a mutually exclusive proposition. 46% of respondents only somewhat agree that current recognition they get is meaningful, while 30% say they strongly or somewhat agree. Align recognition to set a clear set of company values. Recognize specific actions that embody them in real time. 44% of respondents said that their company and manager were just okay at acting on feedback. Conversely, 23% say they're horrible. Start listening to your employees regularly so that they can be part of the solution. Empower managers with the insights and tools to take small, meaningful actions. Only 8% called senior leaders very committed to improving company culture. A mere 23% said they feel very valued by their superiors at work. Get leadership to lean in and invest in the employee experience. All right, now we've got our summary of key findings. We just went through the whole report, so I don't feel the need to recognize this. Hey, listen, I'll leave that up on the screen. If you want to read it, you can. And of course, head over to achievers.com if you want to download the full report. Again, I think they've done an awesome job this year. This data is, first off, it's completely predictable. None of this is mind-blowing to, people like me who do this type of work all the time. But I have to say, I always like when data reinforces things that we already know to be true, and they do a wonderful job with collecting and, kind of disseminating the information. So 2 thumbs up, Achievers. I hope you all go and get your copy of the report, and I hope you enjoyed my review and analysis. Again, agree with me? Disagree with me? Did I leave anything out? Go ahead, leave a comment on the video. Let me know what you think.